Good day, everyone. My name is Geraldine Diaz from BS Psychology 2, and I am with my partner, Jeremiah Felix, and we are going to report about Carl Gustav Jung. So, now, let's talk about the biography of Carl Gustav Jung. So, Carl Gustav Jung was born in 1875 in Switzerland, where he lived all his life. He was the only son of Paul Achilles Jung and Emily. He was a quiet, observant child who packed certain loneliness in his single child status. However, perhaps as a result of that isolation, he spent hours observing the roles of the adults around him, something that no doubt shaped his later career and work. As a child, Jung originally wanted to be an archaeologist, but that time he could only afford to attend the University of Basel, which did not offer courses in that area. And for that reason, he chose to study medicine. So he studied medicine at the University of Basel, and that time he was planning to specialize in surgery when he came across a textbook by Krafft Ebing, a German neurologist, and discovered that he had a passion for psychiatry. Later on, he became a psychiatrist as it gave him the opportunity to study both spiritual and factual sides of the world. His first professional appointment was an assistant in a mental hospital in Zurich, where he worked with Eugen Bleuler, a well-known psychiatrist who coined the term schizophrenia. Later, Jung became a lecturer at the University of Zurich. He established a private practice and developed a word association test in order to study emotional reactions. In 1907, Jung first met Sigmund Freud. The two men were highly impressed with each other and each other's work. That meeting began an intense personal and professional relationship. For some time, Freud regarded Jung as his heir apparent, and he looked on him with all of the affection that a father has for his son. And when the International Psychoanalytic Society was founded, Jung, with Freud's endorsement, became its first president. They traveled together to Clark University, where both had been invited to lecture. In 1913, Jung broke away from Freud and his school because Jung disagreed with Freud's belief that the sexual component was the only part of human personality. Jung also felt Freud was too narrow-minded about his views on unconscious mind and dream interpretations. Freud's main theories were that our sexual libido controlled our unconscious thoughts, and when dreaming, it was our sexual thoughts that controlled the content of these dreams. Thereafter, Jung developed his own school of thought, which eventually came to be known as analytical psychology. So now let's talk about the nature and structure of personality by Carl Jung. Whereas Freud described the structure of personality in terms of three forces that are in conflict, the id, ego, and superego, Carl Jung conceived of the structure of personality as a complex network of interacting systems that strive toward eventual harmony. The main system are ego, the personal unconscious with its complexes, and the collective unconscious and its archetypes. Jung also described two primary attitudes towards reality and four basic functions which towards constitute separate but related aspect of psyche or total personality. Here, psyche refers to all psychological processes, thoughts, feelings, sensation, wishes, and so forth. Jung used the term psyche and psychic rather than mind and mental to avoid the implication of consciousness in the latter and to emphasize that the psyche embraces both conscious and unconscious processes. For Freud, the motive force of personality is libido, the sexual drive. Jung also used libido to refer to psychic energy, but his use should not be confused with Freud's definition. For him, libido is an appetite that may refer to sexuality and to other hunger as well. It manifests itself as striving, desiring, and willing. Psychic energy operates according to the principle of equivalence and entropy. It seeks a balance and moves the person forward in a process of self realization. The personal unconscious and its complexes. So, Carl Jung compared the conscious aspect of the psyche to an island that rises from the sea. We notice only the part above water, even though a much greater landmass, the unconscious, lies below. The personal unconscious is a land that is not always covered by sea and thus can be reclaimed. Here reside those perceptions, thoughts, feelings, and memories that have been put aside, and they may be easily retrieved. The personal unconscious also includes those experiences of an individual's life history that have been repressed or forgotten. Experiences in the personal unconscious are grouped into clusters, which Jung calls complexes. A complex is an organized group of thoughts, feelings, and memories about a particular concept. A complex may be organized around a particular person or object. One of Jung's example is the mother complex. A mother complex is the cluster of ideas, feelings, and memories that have arisen from our own particular experiences of having been mothered. This complex also draws into itself other experiences of mothering to which we have been exposed. Each new instance of mothering that we encounter becomes part of our mother complex and is understood and interpreted by it. So, next is the collective unconscious. Whereas the personal unconscious is unique for each individual, the collective unconscious is shared. So Jung referred to the collective unconscious as transpersonal. By this, he means it extends across persons. It consists of certain potentialities that we all share because we are human. Carl Jung also considered the collective unconscious an empirical concept whose existence can be demonstrated through dreams, mythology, and cross-cultural data. Within the collective unconscious lie archetypes. An archetype is a universal thought form or predisposition to respond to the world in a certain ways. Jung describes several influences archetypes. These are the persona, social role, or mask. The persona is the social role that one assumes in society and one's understanding of it. Then next, shadow, the evil within. So the shadow encompasses those unsocial thoughts, feelings, and behavior that we potentially possess and other characteristics that we do not accept. Next is the anima. Anima is the feminine side of the male psyche. The next is the animus. Animus is the masculine side of the female psyche. Then last is self, the central archetype and true midpoint of personality. Mandala is a symbol of self. So now let's talk about Carl Jung's theory. So Jung's theory is invented to demonstrate the complexity of a human personality and its consequences. It wasn't actually developed to label people based on their personality types. It is more on work to demonstrate the complexity of human mind.
Carl Jung's theory is comprised of two personality attitudes such as extroversion and introversion. An introvert, as Jung was, is more persuaded by the voice of their inner self. An extrovert, as he took from Freud, is to be more inexorably drawn to external things. Along with these two attitudes are the four functions, which are also essentially modes of orientation of the brain. And these are sensation, intuition, thinking, and feeling. For us to understand more, functions are grouped into opposite pairs. Functions of sensation and intuition refers to how we gather data and information. Sensor is more comfortable using the five senses and dealing with facts and reality. Intuitor looks for relationship and meaning for possibilities about past and future events. Thinking and feeling refers to how we come to conclusion to make judgments. Thinker prefers to use logic and impersonal analysis, while feeler is more concerned with personal values, attitude, and beliefs. Combining both attitude and four functions formed eight psychological types that are shown below. Jung's attitude and functions combine to form eight psychological types. As you read them, note which resembles you most closely. For extrovert types, extrovert thinking tend to live according to fixed rules, repress feelings, try to be objective but may be dogmatic in thinking. For extrovert feeling, it will be tend to be sociable, seek harmony with the world, respect tradition and authority, tend to be emotional, and repress thinking. For extrovert sensing, it seeks pleasure and enjoy new sensory experience. The strong oriented toward reality and repress intuition. For extrovert intuition, are very creative, find new ideas appealing, tend to make decisions based on hunches rather than facts, are in touch with their unconscious wisdom, repressing sensing. On the other hand, for the introvert types, the introvert thinking have a strong need for privacy, tend to be theoretical, intellectual, and somewhat impractical. Repressed feelings may have trouble getting along with other people. For introvert feelings, it will be tend to be quiet, thoughtful, and hypersensitive. Repressed thinking may appear mysterious and indifferent to others. For introverted sensing, tend to be passive, calm, and artistic. Focus on objective sensory events, repress intuition. For introverted intuition, tend to be mystic dreamers, come up with unusual new desires, are seldom understood by others, repress sensing. Jung described himself as an introvert intuitor. For the functions application, although all functions are used by different people depending on their circumstances, Carl Jung believed that there is always a preferred single predominant function for every person that are also called superior function. The other function which is individually preferred is called secondary function, and the last preference for every individual is called inferior function. Take note that functions thinking and feeling are in opposite ends of the spectrum, whereas intuition and sensation. To give more understanding about the graph model, let's say if your superior function is feeling, then your secondary function will be intuition and sensation, and your inferior will be thinking. To relate this in the psychological types, like if your superior function is extrovertal thinking, then most probably your inferior will be introvertal feeling. Using their inferior function can lead to a strong emotional responses like anger or even unconditional love. For research and application, Jung's typology has also led the development of assessment and research on psychological type. The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, or also called MBTI, is one of the most popular tools for non-psychiatric population in the area of clinical, counseling, and personality assessment. The instrument, developed primarily by Catherine Briggs and her daughter Isabel Briggs Myers, is designed to implement Jung's theory odd type by sorting people into groups on the basis of four separate dichotomies or indicates such as extroversion, introversion or EI, sensing intuition or SN, thinking feeling TF, and judgment perception JP. It is also used often by corporations to measure the personalities of their potential future employees. The advantage of this is the employees can be trained and fit to their roles according to their personality types. Psychologist Jerome Kagan research on the temperament on toddlers showed that many character traits we are born with make it on adulthood. Using different stimuli like loud sound and bad smells, out of 500 babies he examined, around 20% of the babies cried or getting nervous, 40% stay relaxed, and the remaining 40% were somewhere in between. Years later, a second test showed that babies who didn't react strongly turned to be an extrovert. For evaluation of psychoanalytic theory and concept of humanity, it can be used as a research basis in conducting new study related to Jung's study. Myers-Briggs personality test is considered too simplistic. Critics don't accept the notion that an individual is exclusively either an introvert or extrovert and consider the test too simplistic. Also, it cannot be tested scientifically. The theory is not encouraged to classify people, as Carl Jung himself claimed that every individual is an exception to the rule, saying that although it can be possible in classifying people based on their personality types, human behavior and personality is too complicated to be understood by personality types. Also, empirical studies have not been able to provide evidences that archetypes are inherited, and it is according to Jones 2000 and Maloney 1999. For concept of humanity, like Freud, it is more focused on unconscious than conscious mind. And it emphasizes the concept of teleology, as Jung criticizes the contemporary scientific atmosphere for limiting its concept to those of causality. Also, Jungian is considered as philosophical, as Jung explicitly raised philosophical questions and suggested philosophical answers. And again, thank you for attending and listening to our report. My name is Jeremiah J. Felix, and I am with Miss Geraldine Diaz, and this is our report about Carl Jung's theory and life.